Hello and welcome to the condensed version of the Women in Business webinar that we did discussing the hidden obstacles that women face when they're, working and developing their business. So we had about 33 women join in the webinar. So it was great to get their feedback and see how they were thinking and feeling. So here's the condensed version for those who missed it and for those looking for a recap. So here's kind of our journey. We started with the discussion on the hidden psychological obstacles. So this webinar was based on self-reflection. Unless we start to identify our hidden thoughts and beliefs, we won't be able to work towards changing them and thus transforming the way we develop and grow our business. So at each point in the journey, we kind of stop and self-reflect, and I would invite you to do that too, to see how do these issues affect you and your business. We started with an article from Forbes magazine, and it was a summary of what they believe were the 7 major challenges that women face in business. And so we want to reflect on these ones and see, is that true for us? Because sometimes, you survey a large group and it may not be true to the businesses that we work with at Community Futures and our surrounding area, which is all small town, rural businesses. So as you're watching this, think through these and see which ones really apply to you. But the 7 challenges Forbes magazine found were: number 1, limited funding. In some situations, women are denied loans because of gender and cultural biases. Many institutions tend to fund male-owned businesses. Now, we don't really think that's true here in Canada or in Ontario, but I don't know. We were very interested in the experiences of the women attending the webinar. So the second one, balancing responsibilities. Many women are not just entrepreneurs or career people. They have families, spouses, and other responsibilities. Demands from personal and professional commitments can pressure a woman to abandon either her business or family. We did see a lot of that through the COVID season when, so many children were at home and somebody had to be there to do the online learning. And so this came up as quite something to consider. Number 3, fear of failure. Fear of the unknown is a major issue for women. They dread failing, especially if the people surrounding them were skeptical of their capability in business. This fear is toxic and perilous because women may end up operating from a place of fear instead of confidence. So think about fear of failure. Is that true for you? Are you experiencing that in your business? 4, inadequate support system. Women tend to face the greatest challenges in getting support, from lacking the relevant connections to needing financial access or emotional support. They also need mentors and sponsors to guide them in this new path. So the magazine results were implying that this is really a challenge for women in particular. 5, gender inequality. We don't like to believe this is still happening, but laws, cultures, religion, and politics are built upon a patriarchal foundation. Women must work their way up in the masculine world while facing stigma and discrimination. Although laws and policies have attempted to create a favorable business environment for everyone, the actual changes are not yet fully in place. Number 6, limited knowledge. Empowering a woman with knowledge is just the beginning of a long journey to business success. Unfortunately, women's access to this information and emerging knowledge is limited. Do you think that's true? Is that something you have been facing in your business development? And number 7, timid. Women who strive and succeed are often shy about touting their accomplishments. They are afraid of being labeled as boastful and proud, and women need to stand by their success and let people around them recognize it. So, do we feel very, very timid when we're developing our business? Now we stopped so we could take a poll of the women attending the webinar to see, did they feel any of that was true for them? So here's the results of our poll. The limiting funding issue, 21% of the women, the local business women who are on that call and on this webinar the other day did say that limited funding was an issue. 75% of them felt that balancing responsibilities was a huge challenge. Fear of failure, 50% of the women felt that they were facing this on a regular basis. Inadequate support system, 25%. Gender inequality, still 11%. And the limited knowledge, 18%. Amazingly, 40% of the women in the webinar still felt that they were too timid about their success and being able to promote their business. So it's an interesting poll. So then, we gathered that information. Then we looked at a bit of a different angle. And this is more about their feelings and experiencing. So this information I got from Business News Daily that discussed with women personally, some successful business women, what their challenges were and what they were saying. All right, so here's the 6 things that they found the most common. Number 1, and again, think about how this relates to your business, and we'll see what the poll was at the end. Number 1, making authoritative first impressions. We are often stereotyped by our looks and not immediately recognized as a serious entrepreneur. Number 2, achieving work-life balance. As a mom of 2 and owner of a business, my greatest challenge as a female entrepreneur is finding balance. It can feel like your heart and your time are being tugged in a million different directions at once. Number 3, getting unsolicited advice. Everyone and their cat wants to give you advice on what to do, especially men and people who are not even remotely in the pit with you. I have been talked down to, not taken seriously, and even ridiculed. Being lonely. The big thing I didn't realize was that going from an office of 30 to being a solopreneur would result in feeling really lonely in my professional world. Even though I was meeting with clients and hosting one-on-one meetings, I couldn't unload my concerns, questions, fears, and doubts on existing or potential clients. 5, battling unrealistic expectations. My crazy expectations were mostly from myself. I expected to be supermom, wife of the year, and build a successful business all at once. Even though I am doing great in all key areas of life, I often feel inadequate, which is exhausting. And number 6, overcoming self-doubt. I believe the biggest challenge female entrepreneurs face is our own self-doubt. Insecurity can get the best of us and lead to a less than supportive community of women who are also trying to overcome self-doubt. So then we took a poll to see what our women thought. Here's the results. Making authoritative first impression. 22% of the women in our webinar felt that was true for them. 67% still struggling with the work-life balance. Interesting, getting unsolicited advice from people. 45% of them felt that that was very true. Being lonely, 30%. Battling unrealistic expectations, 63%. And a whopping 74% of the women on the webinar felt like they were struggling to overcome self-doubt. All right, now we're going to take it one step deeper in our reflecting on what our truth is. And I stumbled across this really interesting book by Dr. Valerie Rain, who is a psychologist, women's mental health expert, and a business consultant. And so she was working one-on-one with high-achieving women and women business owners. And she found repeated patterns of the things that they were going through and the things that stressed them. And so she wrote this book called Patriarchy Stress Disorder, The Invisible Inner Barrier to Women's Happiness and Fulfillment. And so she's talking about the things that are really bothering women that are not often discussed in business. So she starts off with this really interesting quote and discussion about Warren Buffett, who spoke about cultural conditioning in a documentary, Becoming Warren Buffett. So his quote was, "My sisters are fully as smart as I am," he said. "They got better personalities than I have, but they got the message that their future was limited. And I got the message that the sky is the limit. It was the culture." And he goes on to say, "Women are born into a culture where they see 95% of Fortune 500 companies run by men, where 100% of the presidents have been male. No matter what pretty words about women's empowerment are placed in commencement speeches and social media memes, as long as women don't see themselves represented in places of power, the message they receive and imprint is, you're worth less." And so it's these feelings that women are struggling with that are discussed in this book. So I took about 5 of the key points to put together to see, is that our experience? Are we finding this true in our businesses? And then I polled the women in the webinar. So here's some of the key points. Number 1, women are under too much pressure. Countless high achieving female clients over the years have shared with me about their burnout, their frustration, disillusionment, despair, rage, depression, adrenal fatigue, issues with weight, digestion, and sleep, panic, and anxiety. I grapple with a constant feeling of overall exhaustion because I feel like I always have to just keep dancing. I'm afraid of failure. I have to be the best at all times and always be pleasant and leave everyone smiling. That's the kind of stuff that Dr. Valerie Rain was hearing and experiencing when she worked with her business clients. That one of the other ones, number 2, that she found was this sense of hidden oppression. And how she relates it or explains it is, women have been oppressed for millennia. Oppression is traumatic. If trauma is genetically transmitted, it may explain why women without any trauma history that they could recall displayed trauma symptoms and adaptations. These are developed to keep us safe, imprinted in our DNA as a part of our survival instructions. These could include things like be seen and not heard, don't be too sexy, too loud, too smart, too rich, too visible, too powerful. Powerful women are burned at the stake. So Valerie's experience was that this feeling of hideout is sort of hidden in our DNA, coming from the years and years of oppression that women have experienced. Don't know if that's true for you who are watching and listening, but let's see what our poll said after we finish this. So number 3, again, going back to Warren Buffett's quote, worth less. The years of patriarchy have impressed upon us that women's bodies and minds are worth less than men's. We climb higher and we build sophisticated scaffolding out of our careers, businesses, relationships, marriages, and families. We build up continuous achievements and milestones in our lives, but as we climb ever higher, we still don't gain freedom from feeling less and often sabotage our success. The 4th one that was brought to light in the book was uncomfortable feeling powerful. A woman's power has always been a punishable offense. Under patriarchy, it's never been safe for a woman to be too visible. We may not have directly been persecuted for our power, but we came from the generations of women before us who have been traumatically conditioned not to reach too high. We mustn't shine too brightly and draw attention, or we'll be in danger of persecution. And the last one she talked about was a subconscious fog. Countless women entrepreneurs have described working on a big project or a high stakes deal and running into stumbling blocks to their success. They describe how they're stymied by an overwhelming mental fog or a lack of clarity and focus that hits as they try to work on the project. They wonder if they have adult ADD. When we look at ADD, ADHD through the lens of trauma, it makes sense as an effective adaptation. As long as we remain distracted, we're not in our full power and thus remain safe. So she's talking about a confusion that comes over women if, if they're getting too successful, or this is a really great project that could be worth a lot of money, anything that would make them uncomfortable with what they're achieving, the subconscious whips up this confusion and this subconscious fog that she found when she was talking to women in business that came up regularly. So now we polled the group to see, is this true for us? Here's the results. Women are under too much pressure. 71% of the women in the webinar said absolutely that's true for them. That sense of hidden oppression and not really knowing where that came from, 52% of the women could relate to that and felt that that was valid for them. That feeling of being worth less, 30% of the group could relate to that. Uncomfortable feeling powerful, 48% of the women stated that that was true for them. The subconscious fog, 71% said that they experience a subconscious fog as they're working on a big project or a big deal that could be related to the success. 71%. I thought that was quite huge. So what we did then is gather that information. We did all that self-reflection. And then as, agencies that want to help and create training, we looked at how do we help? How do we solve some of these problems? And one of them was, do we need business training specifically designed for women, or is business training business training? When asked, the group said that 85% of them would prefer business training that was specially designed for women. 15% said, no, it doesn't really matter, we're fine, business training is business training. But 85% was interested in business training specifically for women. Then we went through to look at where can we help? So as we continued to design programs for women in business, we wanted to know, what was the area that they needed most help with? Marketing and social media, obviously a big challenge, but 50% of the group said they wanted help with that. Sales and customer service, 20%. Financial training, the bookkeeping, cash flow, understanding financial statements, 46% would like help with that. Staffing and human resources, only 18%. Business operations and systems for efficiency, 46%. Time management, really high at 58%, but we learned earlier that juggling all the responsibilities and the work-life balance, that would really help with that. Those inner emotional resistances and emotional intelligence to deal with some of that subconscious fog, 54% would appreciate help with that. The hidden obstacles, specifically from patriarchal influences and dealing with those kind of feelings of oppression, 20%. Confidence, self-esteem, and personal power, 43%. Stress management and mental health, 58% of the group identified that they would appreciate some help and training with stress and mental health. So interesting, now we know. And anybody's interested, we are going to be developing some programs specifically for women in these areas. Okay, and the last poll we did, so we know how to go forward, is how do they like to learn? Okay, the women who we surveyed today basically said 89% of them said they still prefer webinars and online learning, probably because it's easy to access and they can juggle other things that they're going around. Lots of people are saying, can't wait to get back to in-person workshops, but this was interesting that only 54% of the group preferred in-person workshops compared to the 89% that was still interested in webinars. Those who'd like to sit down and read a book to learn what they need to do, 27%. One-on-one coaching, 39%. Small mentoring groups, 46%. It seems like that interest in learning with other women was more valuable. Podcasts, 27%, and only 23% liked audiobooks where you hear the book instead of just sitting to read it. So that again gave us great ideas on how we can put together our webinars and training in the future. So very insightful, very fun. I want to thank all the people that helped put this together and support this program. We worked with the Wellington Waterloo Community Futures, Huron, Huron County's Economic Development and Small Business Center, as well as the Huron Manufacturing Association. So thanks very much for, these ladies really helped put everything together so that we could put this webinar. We're looking forward to doing a whole series of them in the future. So that's the condensed version. I know it went kind of fast, but I wanted to make sure that we got all that material in for those that wanted to have a recap. Thanks very much, and we'll be talking later.